Indian Americans really need to think hard, and they need to think that we are not just the passengers in this political journey, but we need to be the drivers. And if we don't define ourselves and if we don't take care of the narrative about Indian American community, someone else will define us. And so Indian Americans have to realize that American politics is our fate now. Well, there was a moment when I realized that it wasn't about my qualification or candidacy. It was all about checking the boxes. And that's when it became very clear to me, Kapilji, that it wasn't about me. It was about the identity politics that had become widespread in the Democratic Party.
Welcome to Open Mind. It's the fall season here in the US, and also the political season is upon us. And what better way to celebrate both the fall season and the political season to have someone with us who is quite an accomplished Indian American leader in the community here in Texas. She spent 2 terms being the trustee of the Houston Community Colleges. She has spent last 2 decades being at the forefront of educational advocacy, the women's empowerment and women's advocacy, and the advocacy of the Indian American community in general. The list of accolades that she has earned for herself speaks for herself more than I can describe. Neeta Sane, welcome to Open.
Well, thank you, Kapilji. It's a pleasure to be with you and have this discussion which centers around our Indo-American community.
Well, it's great to have you here. I think the first question that I would ask you is, Indian American community in general has been pretty reticent and pretty divorced from taking part in the political process in the US. How did you start this process? How did you even get involved in politics? Because this is something that doesn't happen that often in Indian American.
Absolutely. I mean, it was actually not even a norm for Indian Americans to get into politics. And as you know, I'm a first generation immigrant woman, Indian American. And I would say, looking back, in 2004, we got our citizenship, American citizenship, and we raised our hands. I raised my hand to take the oath of the American citizenship. And that's when I made the commitment, lifelong commitment, to give back some of the blessings that we received in this country. And I've always been passionate about the public good, and I was quite dedicated to the community service. I had started many initiatives to support our youth, women, seniors, and underserved population, and the list goes on. So all in all, I found myself that I was passionately advocating for quality education for all, also making sure that every citizen in this country has equal opportunity to advance in their life. Of course, and being a woman, I was very passionate about making sure that women get to advance in their life, whether in professional or personal life. So that was my advocacy. And looking back now, I clearly see that particular advocacy part opened the door for me to become a political player in a way, especially because one of the political parties invited me to join the party because they had seen my dedication and leadership to fight for what is good and stand up strong for what is right and what benefits our community. So when they invited, I felt that was a great start. I joined the political party. Along that time also, Kapilji, several elected officials in Fort Bend County and Indo-American Political Action Committee, which was very active back then. I'm talking about 18, 20 years now. So they requested me to run for Houston Community College Board of Trustees to basically make a difference in education for students from high school to college and build career pathways for Houston's workforce, as well as help grow Houston's economy. And Houston Community College has always been #1 community college in the nation. And so I was proud to run for Houston Community College, and I won. I was elected HCC trustee for 12 years, and I feel that's how I got into the political service. I did not have the background in politics growing up in India. I was a chemistry graduate. I was doing my PhD in analytical chemistry. So my dream was to become a faculty or go back into research. But I think the citizenship in this country changed the path for me. And I had seen American public schools were struggling when it came to funding for teachers. Curriculum wasn't as rigorous as it should have been. And of course, the American public schools were struggling year after year. And I felt like I should give back when it's my passion. And I should not just sit on the sidelines and let the system just go in a direction that we don't want it to go in that direction. So that's how it started.
And it's interesting, you can find your calling in different ways at
Yes.
different times. You
Yes.
never know when you would find that. It's very interesting. Now, as far as the Houston Community College system is concerned, you were there for 12 years. That was 2 6-year terms. Huh?
2 6-year terms.
So you got re-elected.
I was elected in 2007 and then re-elected in 2013. And the whole span, the tenure was of 12 years of elected public service.
Right. So serving the Houston Community College for 2 terms, that's 12 years. It's no mean feat. Houston Community College is probably one of the largest community colleges
Yes.
in the US, right? What would you say were the key accomplishments where you were able to, make some change or, give back to the community during your tenure?
Sure. And as you mentioned, Kapilji, Houston Community College was number 1 in the nation among all community colleges, over 50,000 students, and the annual budgets to the tune of $300 million. So it was a huge system. And when I got elected, it was quite challenging. But what my focus was always to make sure I remained connected and dedicated to all my constituents, all HCC students, and the taxpayers of Houston Community College. That was the first and foremost priority for me because I was representing the region, Fort Bend, Alief, and Greater Houston as their elected trustee. And my job was to serve them in a way to meet their needs and make sure college also advances. So during my tenure at Houston Community College, I led the college as the board chair of trustees, provided the governing leadership, provided the direction for budgets, institutional policies, programs, and partnerships that we had with industry leaders, community organizations. So it was a lot of work that went in. Also, I led strategic planning, a process for Houston Community College, annexation of Alief into the system. That's what I chaired. Of course, in other committees like diversity and all other HCC committees that were important, I chaired those. And again, the goal was to make sure HCC remains as the number 1 institution, an affordable institution in the nation for all students. And it was actually a number 1 in international student enrollment as well among all community colleges in the nation. So I would say, if I have to sum it up, I would say most importantly, I feel I was instrumental in delivering the promises to all my constituents by adding various educational programs, multiple campuses, millions of dollars of campuses built around Houston to bring entrepreneurship, advanced manufacturing, engineering program, healthcare programs, and developing workforce training in almost over 200 career pathways to help grow Houston's economy. So that I feel that we made a huge impact as a governing body of HCC, working with all. That actually impacted all the students, families, and the economy of Houston. When I was about to end my tenure at HCC, because I did not want to run for the 3rd term, 12 years is a long time, I also made sure that I left that legacy for Houston Community College students. So I established the HCC Trustee Neeta Sane Endowment Scholarship for aspiring HCC students. And now it has actually grown to almost $100,000.
Yeah, and by the way, even the Texas Legislature
Yes.
recognized your accomplishments, and you were also listed as the top 30 influential women of Houston. So obviously there were a lot of recognitions and presentations that came our way because of the incredible work that you have done in the Houston Community College system. Could you talk about some of those recognitions that came your way simply because of the accomplishments that you had?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, of course, and leadership. And I feel it it was really heartwarming back then, and I still feel that, it is prestigious in one aspect because all those recognitions came not just from the state of Texas, but various organizations around in Houston. State of Texas, basically the Senate, Texas Senate, and House of Representatives recognized my work and leadership for the community and Houston Community College as well. I remember Texas Legislature also commended my efforts uh, because I was all working to make sure I strengthened Houston Community College's capacity to serve as a pathway for a higher education and workforce training. So that was recognized by the state of Texas. So I'm really humbled and honored to have received these awards. One particular award that always will stick with me forever, and that is a top 30 influential women of Houston, among other awards. And that is special for me, Kapilji, because, that award respectfully recognized a first generation immigrant woman, Indian American woman who was navigating American politics uh, against all odds, because it's always a challenge. And I was also simultaneously empowering women, other women from all different backgrounds, to help them reach their fullest potential. So, all in all, I feel like that was a very prestigious or precious recognition that empowered me to do more for the community all these years, over 2 decades. And again, Kapilji, I give credit to my mother for that. She's been a great influence in my life. She directed my life path, and I owe this to her and look forward to continuing that legacy that we have built for the next generation. The most important thing is I was able to make a difference for my constituents, for HCC students, giving them a brighter future, and our taxpayers, because they were investing in Houston Community College and they needed to see the return. And so in all, making that difference in the mainstream community and also making sure our Indo-American community benefited, because I was the only voice, Indo-American voice, on the Houston Community College Board of Trustees among 9 trustees. So I also got to make a difference from that aspect to elevate our Indian American community standing in the mainstream community. And that is what I feel grateful for. I'm humbled and honored by all the recognitions and making a difference that goes way beyond everything, any effort, any hard work we put in. And I'm really, really grateful for all that.
What is the first generation Indian American and as a woman when you entered into the political space and the public space, tried to do public good, right? What were the challenges that you faced?
I faced a lot of challenges and hurdles. As a first generation immigrant, a new kid around the block, I was a new citizen and never been in politics.
Yeah.
So it's like jumping in a deep end of the swimming pool, right? So I thought that I would have a lot of support system to elevate myself to reach the goal that I had for the community, for the constituents, for the students. But I faced a lot of hurdles along the way, and I can name a few. Going back, I would say I'm talking about 2005 and 6, so it's almost 18, 20 years ago. Indian American community was not participating as much in the politics per se back then. And so I felt like it was an uphill battle for me to engage the Indian American community, to understand the importance of even having a representative elected person on the Houston Community College Board of Trustees, and build that greater presence for Indian American community. So it was all on my shoulders at that time. There was no other Indian woman that had entered into a political arena, because I was the first one in Fort Bend, and of course later on other women came in. So that I felt like was a huge challenge on my shoulders and responsibility. The biggest challenge, I would say, Kapilji, was I had to constantly fight for my voice to be heard, for our community's voice to be heard among so many loud noises of different minorities in the community. That was a huge challenge. And always I had a pressure to kind of fit into one silo over the other. Each minority, each community has their way of thinking, cultural perspectives, and me being kind of an outsider in this arena, I was kind of pressured into fit into one of the molds. So that was another challenge that I had to overcome. And as a woman, of course, I faced a lot of hurdles because politics, as you know, Kapilji, is a male dominated field. And so getting women's perspectives heard was another challenge. So, kind of, though we talked about how much we accomplished, every challenge comes with great responsibility and challenge. So, my thing is, I can say at this point, and I feel proud that, these challenges kind of made me rise a little bit above and it actually shaped me who I am today. I stayed focused on who I am, what my mission was, what my calling was, and I continued advocating for the public good every step of the way. And I think that's what this public service became significant in my life. So yeah, it's been a series of challenges, and they still continue.
It's been quite a journey. I think the one important thing is that whenever you are a pathbreaker, whenever you are destroying the stereotypes either of a particular background of or a particular racial stereotype or a gender
Right,
stereotype,
right,
you're not only fighting for your own self, but you're also fighting for your community.
absolutely.
You're representing your community, you're representing your gender in a way. And so that puts additional burden of that representation on you.
Yes.
It becomes much harder because you're not only fighting for yourself, you're fighting for the rest of the community too. So I can totally understand that. I think the one thing that is very interesting is that you joined the political party process to be able to serve your calling, which is being able to make a difference in the lives of students and be able to do work for women empowerment and the student empowerment and make educational accessibility and quality better for all Houstonians, right?
Right.
So you joined the political party for that. And eventually came a point when the political party kind of became an impediment in that process. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. The 20 years, I have seen so much of shift in the political party, its platform, how it operates, what is important to them now than when it was back then when I was invited. I was recruited by one of the political parties to join them. I was a very new, citizen, just maybe 12 months or less than that, new American citizen. So when they invited me into the party, basically I saw that party was functioning with the basic or fundamental principle of making sure everybody has equal opportunity in life to succeed. There was women empowerment and women leadership was appreciated back then. Then another thing, I felt like the public education system. That was the focus back then of that party, where we needed quality education for all. So I felt I was entering into the public party, that party that had invited me, that it was a great way to advance these causes. Over the years, I've seen that that party has shifted. Their focus has shifted so much to identity politics. It's like the identity politics is driving the Democratic Party now. And that became a huge roadblock for me because I was always a centrist. I was always, I had my liberty to work with Republicans, Democrats, independent minded people to find common solutions for all taxpayers and move the system together that benefits all. Of course, you have to make a lot of compromises when you work with different mindsets of people. But I had the liberty to do so. Now, with the Democratic Party that has shifted recently, that I've seen over the 5-6 years, identity politics and checking the boxes of identity has become so important, more important than the accomplishments, more important than what the candidate is, what that candidate will do, how it performs in the public office, and how it benefits the community or taxpayers. So that shift became a roadblock for me, and it actually changed the trajectory of my public service and political path.
So from that political journey, when you basically mentioned the party moved into this identity politics space so much, you still try to, chart your way through the party to be able to still do some public good, right? Can you talk about what happened once your 2 terms with Houston Community College were over?
Sure. I mean, it was an amazing twist in my public service path. And for me, and there were several other elected officials and some really kind-hearted and intellectual people in Fort Bend County saw that this trustee had delivered the promises to the constituents, worked hard for the community, elevated everybody together, so that person would make a bigger difference in the government office. And based on that perspective, they had approached me right after my second term of HCC and asked me to run for government offices. One was for tax assessor collector first, and later on also for commissioner precinct 4 for Bend County. And I respected them. I had grown up with them. They were my staunch supporters. So I said, yes, I will run for the office to make a bigger difference through the local government offices. That impacts, again, all our taxpayers. With my experience and accomplishments, I agreed to do so. So I continued my journey thinking that the Democratic Party that I had seen 20 years ago was basically the same party that had the same platform, same values, and it would be okay to continue through that party. But during my first campaign for tax assessor collector, Kapilji, I experienced a very disheartening experience I had to see firsthand that Democratic Party was obsessed with skin color, identity politics. And initially I thought it was probably one time kind of election where the identity politics dominated the Democratic Party, because that was my first experience per se. And still I overlooked that aspect, their political shenanigans, and I continued campaigning hard. As a candidate, as my duty, I focused on telling people what I had accomplished for the people in Fort Bend County for 20 years, what was the outcome, what was my leadership, how I would serve them better, what is my vision and goal. So as a candidate, I continued campaigning all over the county with a lot of hard work, reaching the voters, block walking, campaigning. And while the Democratic Party was focused on the identity politics, they had found a candidate who checked more boxes on that identity politics side of it than me. And the person they found did not have any political experience, did not have any accomplishments, had no community service, and never been in the public service arena. So what I saw in my first election during that tax assessor election, and I came very close to winning this election because everybody thought I would transcend the Democratic Party's primary because they were all my constituents for a year, for Houston Community College. So it was a very close election, and I didn't make it. I was ahead in the early voting election results by 1,000 votes. But on the election day, I fell short in some votes. So I didn't win that election. So it became very clear to me that it's not about the candidate's qualifications or competence or accomplishments. It's about the politics and optics of that identity politics. And basically, the candidate has to go by the narrative of the Democratic Party that had shifted over 20 years so much. So that was my first election for tax assessor collector. It was very close. And still people who believed in me, and they still do, most of them, Republicans, Democrats, Independents as a whole. Because I was endorsed by the Stafford mayor, who was a Democratic leaning, endorsed by a mayor of Missouri City, who was a Republican mayor. So you can see my path has been serving all, working with all. So again, I was approached second time to run for Commissioner Precinct 4 of Fort Bend County, and that region that time was Sugar Land, Missouri City, Fort Bend. Again, I said, okay, let's keep up the fight because we need good people in the public offices and who can be a good a source of trust, capability, competence, and efficiency, and delivering the promises to the taxpayers. So I agreed to it. Again, as many of you already Indian Americans are aware that I was redistricted out and the whole saga happened. But again, what I'm getting back to it, I experienced the same discriminatory politics in the Democratic Party. I was hoping that I would see something different at the second time. But I encountered the same divisive dynamic in the Democratic Party again. And that's when it became very clear to me, Kapilji, that it wasn't about me. It was about the identity politics that had become widespread in the Democratic Party. So eventually, I made a hard decision. I exited the Democratic Party and moved on to greater responsibilities in life to do good for the whole region. And that's kind of a shift, as you asked me earlier. It kind of changed the trajectory of my political journey, starting with the Democratic Party, then getting into a non-partisan office for 12 years, serving all, giving myself my best to the Democratic Party as a candidate, but they left me behind. So I exited the party.
It's definitely very disheartening when this happens to public officials who enter into office to do truly public good rather than just for the sake of office. It's very interesting to see that you had obviously your supporters and your backers who proposed that you continue to serve in a public office because of your accomplishments. So it looks to me that while there are great people still in the Democratic Party,
Absolutely.
I think there is an overarching party identity politics diktat that kind of dictates how the party actually behaves at a higher level.
Exactly. And it's the party leadership that was the issue more than the grassroots general people who are more open-minded and accepting. I think it was the party leadership that took the party to a totally different direction.
And there's a possibility that a lot of those people are feeling suffocated by the party's shift as well. But that also raises a pretty important question for the Indian American community, right? As a representative and a pretty early representative of the Indian American community in the US politics, running for public office and holding the public office for so many years, if all of this difficult situation could happen to you, then how do you kind of convince those Indian Americans to be more involved into the political process? What is your message to the Indian American community when it comes to running for the political office, being more engaged, being more aware, and things like that?
It's a good question, Kapilji, when it comes to discussing Indian American community per se. Our community is now becoming vocal, but we haven't gained that political muscle among all other minority and ethnic groups. That's the fact, even as of today. We have come a long way. Compared to how it was 20 years ago, we now have a lot more voice, and many are standing up and running for offices. But it's not reaching to the level where it unifies the Indo-American community with a unified political agenda. And my message would be at this point is we have to, in spite of all these challenges, we have to keep making progress no matter what. Because most of us are first generation immigrants, and we have to focus on what is good for our kids and future generations and grandkids. They are not going back to India. And so Indian Americans have to realize that American politics is our fate now in cultural activities, Bollywood, cricket. But ultimately, our kids are going to be impacted by American politics, and we cannot sit on the sidelines.
Like I would say, India may be our Janmabhoomi,
Yes,
but America is now our Karmabhoomi.
absolutely.
And we have to
Yes.
wholeheartedly embrace it
Yes,
for its future and for our kids and their generation.
exactly. और वैसे this country has also, हमें आपको पता है, it has given us a lot of opportunities.
It has given us more than we could ask for.
Exactly. And so we also feel like it's time for us to give back, not just for our own families, but this country that we have developed the love for this country. It should translate into serving beyond our own interests. And that's, I think, Indian American community needs to keep progressing on that aspect. If we want to have a voice and representation in every level of government. And also, most importantly, Indian American community is seen as a model community by these political parties. The model community that we are have the votes and we contribute, which helps them win the elections for a certain party. And I think we need to break away from that mold to make sure that we are electing the Indian Americans who deserve to be in public office, who live by the value system that we have. All of us, we feel like we have different religions, we have different communities, different cultures, different foods, but we have so much in common when it comes to value system, families, education, economy, low taxation, right? Low crime. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I feel like we cannot overlook certain aspects of politics saying, well, we don't get engaged because we don't know what it is. Then you're basically shooting yourself on the foot because you're not building a better future for this country or your family members or your kids.
Well, I think that's an excuse I've heard multiple times. We don't get engaged because we don't know what it is. But at the same time, you not know what it is till you get engaged. So I think it's a chicken and egg situation.
Yes.
Sometimes you learn swimming only by going into the swimming pool. You don't learn swimming by looking at videos. And then when it is really cool. So I think there's a little bit of that too. So you brought up something very interesting. The Indian American community always has issues that it finds very important, right? The family, education, less crime, encouragement in legal immigration, not illegal immigration,
right,
low taxation, things like that. It almost feels to me that Indian American community, the issues that are important for them don't always fall into the plate of one party versus another, right? Could you talk about what Indian American community typically tends towards and whether we should really be supporting one party over another party or we should be more issue-based?
Absolutely, Kapilji. And you brought up a fantastic point. All these issues that you listed, from immigration to healthcare, education, family values, taxation, crime, and so on and so forth, they don't fall in one party platform per se. So voting by party line or a label, whether just Republican R or Democrat D, it doesn't serve the Indian community's purpose to achieve the best in all these issues, because we are all issue-based, system. I mean, in our community, at least, we focus more on issues. We don't talk about, like, I grew up in Mumbai, India. It's a metropolitan city. The issue is the first thing, not about the skin color, not about what language they talk or what they eat, food that they eat at home. So we don't have that culture and perspective. So coming here, I don't think the Indian American community or even those who are serving or want to serve should succumb to the party politics of that nature, where everybody's segregated by certain type of identity, whether it is skin color, gender, ethnicity, or wokeness. And that would be detrimental for our community's growth because our issues get put on the sideline and competence and capabilities have been put on the back burner. So my recommendation and suggestion is at this point that it's first of all it's going to it takes a village to make a difference. All our Indian communities, some of them gravitate towards the Democratic Party, some gravitate towards Republican Party based on which issue is important to them.
Yeah.
For instance, some Indian Americans feel that free education or appeasement to minority is more important and they gravitate towards Democratic Party. Some Indo-Americans feel that the economic stability, low taxation, family values are more important for us. So they gravitate towards Republican Party. So in all, we can say there is no one party that really represents all our issues and addresses our issues. So best way I feel is to look at the candidate, what the candidate's qualifications are, what the values are. Do they really serve the Indian American community's core values and the needs? And do they have the trustworthy public service track record of delivering what they say? Usually, the politicians always make promises. I will do this, I will do that, and they never deliver. That is the huge thing that I feel we should look at uh, the candidate's capability in terms of whether that person is able to deliver what Indian community is looking for.
So at least the Indian American community, given the size that it is now and how it has grown in the last 20 years, obviously we have a little more voice compared to what we had 20 years ago. And there are Indian Americans who have now gotten into public office, even at the local Houston level, right? Given that, do you think they are truthfully and faithfully representing all the Indian issues or the issues that are important to Indian American community? Or do you think they are kind of towing the party lines and not quite paying attention to the constituents that basically put them into the office?
A good observation, Kapilji, that you have. And based on my last two election cycles that I had, very recent, last two elections that I went through, what I have seen, and I'm surprised by one fact, and you may have seen it too, that Indo-Americans who have gotten elected into the local county government offices, possibly including county judge and so many others, I have seen and I feel that many have succumbed to the party politics, certain one party's politics, to the level that our needs, Indo-American communities' needs, are getting overlooked. For instance, the immigration. We don't believe in illegal immigration. We all came through the legal process of immigration. Yeah. Democratic Party has not taken a strong stand on the immigration. Their policies, if you see, are pretty broad compared to Republican Party's politics. So what I feel is the people who are in the office need to have a strong say about these things because these are about issues. It's not about one party. You can get elected to whichever party, but again, why do we get elected into the office? Because we stand up for those issues. And I have seen silence from these elected officials, and I'm surprised. For instance, even education. I mean, public education. Yeah, free education is okay. People like it, but it's not resulting into producing the students who are ready to take college level courses or ready to perform in the jobs. So when the elected officials stay silent, then our system is not really being served fully. That's what I'm surprised about. I've been a very vocal person. I'm a very straight shooter from day one. And I expect Indo-Americans who get elected in public offices now or forever, let's not lose our voice for the party politics. Parties have changed over 20 years, and they will continue to change. They evolve with radical ideologies. They evolve with radical policies. They evolve with radical platforms change. But if we don't stand our ground, and if we don't fight for our issues and who we are and what we believe in, then we are basically giving in to somebody else's political play just to get elected and stay elected in the public office.
So maybe the way I would confront that is that on one hand, we want to have people from the Indian American community enter politics to represent us. But at the same time, we also need to hold them accountable
Yes.
for representing the issues that are important to us and not be completely given into the partisan politics.
Yes.
That is an overarching view of the party itself, where they actually forget about serving the constituents, which is us.
Right. I feel fortunate to have many relationships with the Republicans and Republican Party itself. I really enjoyed last 2 years working with many people in the Republican Party. The precinct chair, the Republican Party chair, is an amazing person, and I like the open dialogue. They know where I came from, which party I was in, but still they had open arms. They invited me, welcomed me into the party. Why? Because they know that I am not bowing down to certain political platform just to promote myself or get myself in a political office. That's the definition of public service. I think Indo-Americans need to remember. Let's not become a pawn of one political party. Because we are stronger in the economy, we are educated, we are hardworking, and we do so much for this country. And we should have a bigger and stronger voice and lead this institution, whether it is local institution, educational institution in the United States. Let's become leaders, not just be the passengers in the, in the car, and let's kind of take the leadership role at a different level.
So in a way, basically have our voice.
Yes.
And stand up for our own interests.
Correct.
And our own issues.
Yes.
And not give unconditional support to any political party. So, in other words, the political parties need to earn our vote.
Absolutely.
Not take us for granted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's where we need to have a voice. And I think the Indian American community has reached this point after 20, 25, 30 years that we do have a voice. It's just a matter of we getting involved in it to say it out and loud. But people fear about fitting in a social circle, or they're not as motivated. They don't know where to start. And I always tell them, look, you can start volunteering, start voting in a way that, that you exercise your right to vote. Know who you're voting for, why you're voting for, and how it impacts your life. And also they can advocate for any cause, like we are talking about immigration. Yeah. If that is close to your heart, start advocating for that cause. Have your opinions. Send it out op-eds. Go and discuss it in your social clubs. Educate and elevate people on this issue that impacts your kid, my kid, our society. Yeah. So I think Indian American community needs to get more involved, and we need to do more. We need to build a stronger coalition among all our diverse communities who have come from India. And I'm optimistic. We have come a long way, and we can do it. It's just a matter of you are a leader doing so many things, pushing everybody to at least start thinking about these issues. So I appreciate all that you're doing.
You have to do whatever you can. Basically, having these field clubs where people can come in and voice their opinion,
right?
And that opinion can then be, listened to by other people, absolutely, and they can make up their own mind.
Right, right.
Neeta, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story with us. Your story highlights not only the challenges of being a pathbreaker and being able to shatter the glass ceiling and being able to do a lot of those immensely important things for the society and the community that you did. It does highlight a lot of challenges that you faced, but it also gives me a lot of hope and inspiration that a lot of our listeners will get from this, and they will be more engaged and there will be more participants in the political process going forward.
Well, thank you so much, Kapilji, for having me. I enjoyed this open dialogue. Thank you for all that you do. And I hope this discussion really enlightens many, many more people to go out and vote, because early voting is about to start or has started, and election day is just around the corner, November, first week. So I hope more people vote, and they just don't go and vote blindly for anybody, but they take time to know who they are voting for, why they are voting for, and they have vetted the candidate before casting their vote in the ballot box for that person. After all, the future of this country and also the local politics is all in our hands, and we need to do our due diligence to make sure we select and elect the right people in the offices who really mean what they mean during the campaign trail, and deliver to us in terms of finances, taxation, education, immigration, and so on and so forth. A safer neighborhood, that's also a part and parcel of it. So I really urge every Indian American community to take this election seriously, cast your vote, make sure you know who you're voting for, and let's make a difference together, because it's our right to vote. It's our civic duty. Yeah. And if we stay out of this politics, we should also know the consequences of it. So I again urge everyone, and you are making a huge difference, mobilizing so many of us to take a decision in the right direction. So thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I just want to end with a note. A lot of decisions and a lot of decisions get made on the local level. So every vote is important. Every position that you vote for is critical. Just go out and make a decision with your heart, but also with your mind.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you will make the right choice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.